Sabrina and Daphne's father had kept fairy tale stories out of their house, leaving the girls for tremendous disadvantage now that their jobs was to investigate crimes in the ever after community. Still, even Sabrina had heard the wolf's most famous story, Little Red Riding Hood. The way she recorded, a really lousy mother sent her kid into the woods for a basket of food, and everyone was supposed to be surprised when an animal attacked her. Sabrina was wondering what kind of lame parents Red Riding Hood must have had when she noticed the pale and nervous expression on Daphne's face. No one told me this story, Daphne said, pointing to the book she was reading. What story, Liebling? Granny Rhoda asked as she came in from the kitchen. Daphne held up a dusty copy of Children's and Household Tales, better known as Grimm's Fairy Tales. The story of Little Red Riding Hood, she said. Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm called it the story of Little Red Cap. This version is gross. Granny shook her head knowingly. It is troubling, but don't forget, Mr. Canis isn't like the wolf in that story. Puck, who had been ignoring everyone up until that point, leaped up and rushed across the room. What did he do? He ate Red's grandmother, Daphne said. Ate her? Sabrina cried. That's awesome, Puck exclaimed. Sabrina ignored Puck. I thought he killed her. The killing part usually happens when you eat someone, Puck said matter-of-factly. That was a long time ago, Granny said. We weren't there. Some of the story could be exaggerated. Daphne scanned the old book. It says here that Red's parents sent her into the forest with a basket of food. She was supposed to take it to her sick grandmother, but along the way she met the wolf. He asked her where she was going, and she told him. Mistake number 1, Puck said. Daphne continued. The wolf raced ahead, ate her grandmother, then put on her clothes. Creepy, Puck commented. Then it says here that when Red showed up at the house, he ate her too. That's not right. Little Red Riding Hood is alive and crazy as ever, Sabrina said. Just thinking about the little girl gave her goose pimples. She calmed down when she remembered Red was locked up in the Ferryport Landing Memorial Hospital's mental health ward. It had been only a few months since the hilarious Red had stormed through town on the back of a Jabberwocky, causing serious mayhem. You can't put a lot of weight in this story, Granny explained. There are a lot of contradictory facts that don't add up, and there are many, many versions. That's true. Now I remember this story. My father told me it once, Puck said. Something about a woodcutter who saved Red and a granny by cutting the wolf's belly open and freeing them. Then I think he loaded the wolf's belly up with stones and tossed him in the river to drown. I'd like to meet that guy. He's totally hardcore. Who cares how many versions there are of the story? He eats people in all of them, right? Sabrina asked as she glanced at the open pages of the heavy book. Puck nodded. Don't forget he tries to kill the 3 little pigs and a whole family of talking lambs. I tell you, the guy's got anger management issues. Sabrina's mind was drowning in all the new information. She turned to her grandmother, who was nervous and fidgety. Did he really do this? The room was silent. Granny lowered her eyes. Sabrina was dumbfounded. And you let him live here with us. You left us alone with him. He slept in a room right across the hall. The wolf is the murderer, Sabrina. Mr. Canis is not responsible, Granny said. Mr. Canis is the wolf, Sabrina cried. No, you are wrong, Sabrina, so Granny snapped. Mr. Canis and the wolf are 2 separate people who share the same body, Sabrina argued. Mr. Canis taps into him when he needs his power. He's been changed into the wolf for months. Okay, everyone, let's calm down, Daphne said. But Granny was agitated and kept arguing. Mr. Canis has always been in charge, or at least he has been since the pigs got a hold of him. It wasn't until recently that he lost control of the creature inside him. Granny, you saw him today, Sabrina said. If we manage to get him out of jail, then what happens? What are we going to do if the wolf takes over? There will be no way to stop him. Sabrina, Mr. Canis is our friend, the old woman cried. Our friend is a bloodthirsty monster. Granny's face turned red and her lips quivered in anger. Sabrina had never seen the old woman lose her temper so quickly. Sure, Granny had been angry in the past, but this was something far beyond that. Sabrina Grimm, go to your room. Sabrina reeled back. What? I haven't been sent to my room since I was 7 years old. That's long overdue. Sabrina looked around at her family, hoping someone could explain what had happened. But they all had the same expression on their faces. They were angry with her too. All she did was point out the obvious. Mr. Canis was turning into a vicious killer, and no one knew how to stop it. Wasn't it best for everyone if he was locked up safe and sound? Outnumbered and bewildered, Sabrina marched up the steps and into her room, slamming the door shut behind her. She threw herself on her bed and fought back tears. Crying would be like admitting to everyone that she was still a child, and worse, that her opinions were no more valid than a little kid's. They could send her to her room, but that didn't make her wrong. Someone needed to ask if they weren't all better off with Mr. Canis in the cage. Are you well? A voice asked from beneath the bed. Sabrina leaped up and backed against the wall. Who's there? I'm part of your security detail, the voice said. I'm guarding your bed. Sabrina groaned. I could really use some privacy right now. Sorry, boss's orders. I can't. If you don't get out from under my bed right now, I'm going to drag you out and punt you through the window. Sabrina heard scuffling, and a moment later, a little creature with a bright red nose, bat-like ears, and furry feet crawled out from under the bed. He brushed himself off and examined Sabrina. I suppose I could take a coffee break. Sabrina said nothing, only pointed at the door, and a second later the creature was gone. She expected her grandmother to come to her, apologize for losing her temper, and tell her that everything was going to be okay. But after several hours, the old woman had still not appeared. Daphne and Uncle Jake were no-shows as well, and so was Puck, whom she would have bet money would come by just to gloat. Elvis poked his head in once. She called to him, but the big dog shook her off and disappeared down the hallway. Even the family pet was against her. She was hardly surprised. She usually found herself butting heads with the others. Sabrina never seemed to do or say anything right, and she often felt as if she were a constant source of disappointment. It wasn't fair. She had been trying very hard to embrace her responsibilities and had taken up detective training with all her energy. She discovered she was even good at some of it. She excelled in tracking, clue finding, and self-defense. Just last week, Granny had praised Sabrina for her problem-solving skills. Well, how could Sabrina be so smart last week and now be completely wrong about Candace? He himself had told Granny that Sabrina was the only one in the family who saw him for what he was. He had warned them all, and now she was being punished for listening. Around supper time, she heard a knock on the door. Someone had left a tray with baked chicken and gravy that smelled like pureed crayons and blueberries. She took it into her room and picked at it listlessly. After a few bites, she pushed it away. Later that evening, there was another knock on the door. It opened slowly, and Daphne poked her head inside. Is it safe to come in yet? The Bethro said you threatened to kick him out of a window. It's safe. In fact, I'm glad you're here. We need to talk. If it's about Mr. Canis, I don't want to hear it. He's our friend. Daphne entered the room. She sat at the desk, opened a drawer, and took out a little bag. Inside was a string of pearls. She tried them on while Sabrina talked. Our friend has a history of eating grandmothers and little girls, Sabrina said. You don't want that to happen again, do you? Daphne shook her head. He's not like that anymore. You know it too. We've been here almost 8 months and he's never hurt any of us. He's changing, Daphne. What should we do, then? Leave him in jail? Let Nottingham and Hot kill him? He needs us to rescue him. We are Grimms. This is what we do. Well, Grimms are prepared, right? That's what Granny says all the time. We should get the weapon. Daphne reached into her shirt and pulled out a chain. Hanging on it was a small silver key with safe deposit box numbers carved into its side. Mr. Hamster gave us this for emergencies only. This is an emergency, Sabrina urged. I want Mr. Canis to be safe and sound just like you, but let's face it, the guy is getting hairier and angrier by the day. You saw him freak out at the jail today. What are we going to do if we find a way to free him and he loses control to the wolf? It's best that we had the weapon, just in case. If Mr. Canis finds a way to fix himself, then great. We'll just put it back in his safe deposit box. Or even better, we could use it to scare off the safety deposit, the Scarlet Hand. If whatever is in the box can put the hurt on the wolf, then it can suddenly take care of them. We might even be able to get rid of Puck's stupid security team. That would be nice. I found an elf in one of my one of my dressing drawers, munching on my socks, Daphne said with a small smile. It's best if we are ready for whatever happens. Give me the key. I will sneak out tonight and go get it. Daphne was about to take off the necklace when she hesitated. No! Whatever is in that box is magic, and you shouldn't be around magic at all. You know you're addicted to it. Besides, Mr. Hamster gave the key to me. So I'm going to decide when we use it. Sabrina was furious. Daphne, if this is part of your I'm a big girl now routine, you need to cut it out. This is important. I said no, and I mean no. Daphne snapped. Sabrina was tempted to inch the necklace right off Daphne's neck, but a knock at the door distracted her. The door creaked open and Uncle Jake entered. How's it going? He asked. Great, Sabrina said. The whole family hates me. I'm having a fantastic day. Uncle Jake laughed. Trust me, you aren't the first person to make my mom angry, especially when it comes to Mr. Canis. Daphne sat down on the bed. You've argued with Granny about him too? Sure, so do your grandfather and your father, Uncle Jake replied. He sat down at their father's desk and ran his hand over the wooden top. When Canis first came to live with us, it was all of us against Mom. We all felt like you do now, Sabrina. I don't hate him, Sabrina said. I'm just pointing out that he's changing. Why is she getting angry when I tell the truth? Because after all this time, you still failed to give Canis the benefit of the doubt. And Sabrina, he deserves it. When he showed up on our doorstep, my father refused to help him. But Mom has always seen the good in people. She invited him to live here, and it drove my dad nuts. He was sure Canis would change back and eat us all in the dead of night. Your father and I used to block our bedroom door with heavy furniture when we went to bed. We used to sleep with baseball bats under our pillows. We were terrified of him. If all of you felt like that, then how come I'm the bad guy now? Sabrina said. Because we were wrong back then, and you are wrong now. Canis has proven over and over that he can be trusted. He's saved all of our lives 1,000,000 times over, and he's never allowed anyone to lay a hand on my mom. He has been the best friend she ever had and a good friend to me. When the Jabberwocky killed my father, Canis went and dug the grave. I was destroyed by what happened. I blamed myself and didn't even stick around for his funeral. That seems to be the end of the deal. I'll see you later. Goodbye.